They were rough men living alone, constantly chasing the elusive beaver for profit. Welcome to Stories from the Midland, a collection of historic tales from Teller County and the surrounding areas. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the mountain men and look a little closer at a fella named Catamount Charley. The story of the mountain men really doesn't start in the mountains. It starts in the northeast of the American continent, where beaver was hunted almost to extinction. You see, beaver was used extensively in Europe and therefore in higher American society for the most stylish hats. Everyone will recognize the tricorn hat as the hat worn by the American revolutionaries. But also the fur of the beaver was used for the Navy's cocked hat, the Army ceremonial hats of the 1800s, cleric hats, and top hats, also known as the Dorset and the Regent. These hats were all the rage on both continents, so there were plenty of money-making opportunities if one could effectively capture and sell the beaver. With the hunt for the beaver being so widespread, the little animal was driven to extinction in the America's Atlantic Northeast and up into eastern Canada. So men started looking to the unexplored West as a possible source of beaver pelts. Even Thomas Jefferson tried to send men west to get him some of the beaver he was sure could be found out there. His first two attempts were abortive, but once Jefferson became president, he was able to convince Congress to fund an expedition which ostensibly had the purpose of exploring all the way to the Pacific. Jefferson put his former personal secretary, Meriwether Lewis, in charge of the Corps of Discovery, and Lewis chose William Clark, a man he had served with in the Army, to share command with. The team set out from Camp Du Bois outside of St. Louis, Missouri on May 14, 1804, and returned on September 23, 1806, to a hero's welcome. In their travels, Lewis and Clark found many exploitable populations of beaver. Their journey and discoveries inspired would-be beaver trappers, later in mountainous regions to be given the moniker mountain men, to head out into the untamed western region of the continent to get their hands on beaver of their own. The most well-known name in the beaver trade was Kit Carson, for whom many towns, facilities, and even Fort Carson outside Colorado Springs are named for. But into the late 1830s and into the 1840s, fashion was moving on. Beaver hats fell in popularity, and so too did demand for the beaver. But living off the land, mountain men were able to, at least for a while, bolster their beaver income by selling pelts of other creatures they had become experts at hunting. And as the beaver trade faded out, the term mountain men was applied generically to backwoods mountain hunters and trappers who would also serve from time to time as guides. This situation sets the stage for the entrance into our narrative in the 1870s of Catamount Charley, a man who lived in a small and secluded cabin near Edlowe and collected the pelts of game on the slopes of Pikes Peak. In an article in the December 10, 1880 edition of Colorado Springs' Gazette-Telegraph, it describes old Catamount Charley as being tall and long-legged with a loosely knit frame, with a dark, ethnically ambiguous face, black eyes, and flowing black beard. It further says he always wore a yellow buckskin shirt and buckskin trousers, both trimmed with a fringe of buckskin cut into strips, a cartridge belt filled with the loaded shells of a heavy repeating rifle, which he carried in his hand, a wide white sombrero on his head, and moccasins on his feet. And wherever he went, he did so on the back of his piebald Mustang, Captain Kidd. Another article, this one in the December 17, 1880 edition of the Gazette-Telegraph, tells a story of Catamount Charley riding into town looking to sell the hides of a bison and 3 mountain lions. The reporter of the story was present when Catamount Charley arrived and started negotiating with a Mr. Hunt of Aiken and Hunt's Museum. In the conversation,
"I say, boss,"
remarked Charley.
"I got some skins here I'd like to sell you."
"Certainly," said Mr. Hunt with his usual politeness. "I shall be glad to look at them."
"Here,"
said Charley,
"is a mountain bison's hide. Here is a mountain lion's hide. And here are two more lion's hides. That first lion's skin is the biggest I ever see. It's 9 feet from tip to tip. The critter must have weighed 500 pounds. You see, it was this way. I was looking round for game back at the peak when all at once I heard a growling and a howling, which reminded me that the mountain lions was not all dead yet. So I crawled around to Point of Rock, and I'm blamed if I didn't see 3 mountain lions having a fight with a monstrous bison. I tell you, it was a big fight. The lions would make a leap, and the bison would back up against a root and take them on his horns. I don't know how the fight would have come out, but it was just too good a picnic for me to let pass. So I drawed a bead on the first lion as it came in range and pulled off my old rifle. The surprising part of the affair was that just as I pulled one off, the lions jumped between me and the one I shot and caught the ball just back of his ribs. It passed clean through him, and being turned a bit, it cut the second lion in the throat and went on to break the neck of the bison. They all dropped in a heap. I was so tickled that I incautiously jumped out from behind the rock when the third lion saw me."
"Indeed," said Mr. Hunt.
"Yes,"
said Charley.
"The third lion, he saw me and made a jump in my direction. As I saw him coming, I didn't have time to take aim, but I brought my repeating rifle up under my arm and took a fly shot at him. Lucky for me, I took him in the breast and he tumbled over dead."
"Indeed," said an excited Mr. Hunt again.
"Yes,"
said Charley.
"He tumbled over dead. Now, what will you give me for these skins? 3 mountain lions and 1 bison."
At this point, as the haggling continued, the reporter left the establishment, so we have no record of what Catamount Charley was paid for the hides. Thank you for joining me for this episode. This is Tommy Allen wishing you a great day. And should you find yourself in a store with a scruffy-looking fella having a loud conversation, pay attention. You may come away with a great story. I look forward to having you join me next time for more stories from the Midland. Okay, so here we are. We have our green screen with Catamount Charley standing in front of it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go in and do a little color correction. After we do the color correction, we're going to do the chroma key against the green screen back there to get rid of the green screen. And with some of the green screen spilling over into my hair, we'll do the advanced spill suppression. After that, well, you can see that we've got a bunch of stuff still around the outside that we want to get rid of. So I'll put a mask around Charley to get rid of all of that. And we're pretty much done at that point. And here it is with the background. For some of the pelts, they traded with native